Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank Podcast. I'm here with Mr. Stephen Walsh.
Hi, how you doing?
I love doing that at the intros when I say somebody's name. Just give them that Stephen Walsh, that dramatic. Yeah, cheers up your day a little bit too. So, Stephen, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, and if you want, what you do professionally?
So I'm 38. I'm from Birmingham in England. I'm a poor entrepreneur. Is how I class myself.
So, an entrepreneur. I get it. Yeah.
Just a poor one for now. But I run a successful electrical inspection business. Well, we call it pat testing over here. I'm not sure what you guys call it over there. So probably just be easy to say electrical inspection of portable appliances.
Electrical inspection. I think I did this when I was a kid. I stuck a fork in an electrical socket. That counts as an inspection, right?
Yeah. Did you do the funky chicken?
I've, had a little bit of a seizure, but what else can you do?
See, I always have a joke about that never lands. Whenever you mess around with that, I can't touch electricity. I'm allergic to it. And it never lands.
Yeah, you can't touch dude. See, now the weirdest thing about electricity is if you're going to make an electrical socket and you have a little kid, they teach you this game here in America where, you stick up the block in the right shaped hole so it matches the block or something.
Yeah.
Why would you let a kid have a fork and then show them the little thing that looks like a face? I mean, that is priceless to go in there. And it really sucks because I think when I was like a child, they immediately came up with this thing that you put on over the electrical socket, like a block. So so you can't stick anything in there to save a kid from sticking a fork in there. I was like, that's what you needed in life. You needed to get shocked the shit out of until that happened.
It's like when a waiter or waitress brings the food over and they always say the plate's hot. You always have to touch it to find out just how hot it is.
You hear it sizzle when it comes over to you, and you're like, that can't be hot. Like literally, it's smoking. You're like, I'm gonna touch it anyway. I gotta learn.
So I've been running. I've been running the electrical inspection business now for 3 years, and then I had a bit of a bad breakup with my ex about 2 years ago. So, and the business was still in its infancy. So I was, I was in a bit of a what do I do now sort of place. So then I started writing I had an idea for a book back in 2003. And I'll tell you about that in a second. Since 2003, I've been meaning to write it. Come on, what are you waiting for? I always had the excuse, I haven't got the time, and I really need to sit down and think about this. But then, when I had my breakup, I was just really depressed one day. I thought, right, sort yourself out, Steve. So grabbed my laptop and then wrote the first chapter just straight off the bat there. So the idea was, I used to be in the Royal Navy, and I was in there for I did 8 years total, but I was about four and a half years in, and my ship was just about to deploy down to the Antarctic. To help with the British research scientists over there. So what the beauty of, how can I put this? The only way you survive life in the forces, especially in the Navy, is you gotta master how to kill time.
I get that. I mean, I work a casino job, and a lot of it's just kind of standing around and showing your presence. But there's this one shift we have where you're literally watching the back door. And I worked the early morning shift. So we get maybe a total of like 100-something people in through the front door. Nobody comes in through the back. So you're literally staring at a fucking door for like an hour total. And let me tell you something. It goes by so slow. But I mean, I get it. Killing time. I mean, that's a lot what jobs and duties are. But I guess that's where you started writing your book, was you were trying to jot down some thoughts.
Just to try and make sense. Well, the idea for the book was, by the way, sailors in England are called matelots. It's from the French word, French sailor, but mate lots, because that's what sailors do. You get it?
Yeah.
So what matelots do before they deploy is I mean, this is before the time of, you know, digital and all the rest of it. We literally had to go to, you know, physically go to a shop and you just buy books, DVD box. It wouldn't even matter what DVDs you bought, because when you're on ship, once you've completed all your books and DVDs and CD records, whatever, you swap them with your Oppo, you know. So over the course of a deployment, you know, however long that would be, you'd have done the whole shop anyway. But at the time, I remember being in, we call it Safeway, I suppose your version of Walmart, really. And I remember seeing a book by Wayne Rooney, the football star. And he was 20 years old at the time, and he just signed a £5 million book deal for his autobiography. And I thought, dude, I mean, and this was early in Rooney's career, really. He hadn't really, all he had done is signed for Premier League team Everton at like 16, 17, and then he went on to be the youngest English goal scorer, beating Michael Owen's record by a couple of days. But that's all he'd really done, really. By the time he was 20 years old, I was, how old was I? I think I was 23, 24. I'd already been in the Navy sort of 4 years. And I thought, put my autobiography next to his without the names, and mine beats you every day. Because I've travelled, you know, by that time I'd travelled half the world already, and you know, I'd had a crazy life anyway. So
the book is basically a biography about you.
Yeah.
Just like your tales and adventures and stuff, like where you've traveled.
Yeah. And how I got there, really. How I got there, or not that I know where I'm going. You know, well, what journey I'm on.
What'd you title the book, dude? I mean, let's see. You were in the Royal Navy at the time. You're talking about your life. Please tell me you gave it something badass, because first of all, when you throw out, what you threw out to me as an American, you said Royal Navy. That's like pulling out a measuring tape and trying to measure each other's dicks, because the Royal Navy sounds so much more badass than how we just say Navy here. I'm like, hold on a second. They say Royal Navy. I immediately think of like degrees and those like little blocks that they put on the uniform, but it's like stacked so high up that that you can't look down because they're just hitting you in the face. You're just like sitting there. I'm like, that's what I picture. But so like when you like, what did you title it, dude? I gotta know.
Sorry, say that again.
What'd you title your book?
So I'm just an ordinary guy, right?
Okay.
But I've had quite an extraordinary life, so that is the working title at the moment, an extraordinary life.
Extraordinary life. So this book is on its way to being published, or are you trying to? Is it still in kind of fruition?
No, I'm 24 chapters in.
How many chapters do you plan on doing it? Because I would make a book that'd probably be about 3.
Dude, I see a lot of people, a lot of my friends. I've had a couple of test guinea pigs, you know, mates and whatnot, read the first couple of chapters, just so as I feel I'm going the right way as I'm writing it, you know, because it's quite tricky to write military sort of jokes and humour into, you know, explain it to civilians and without sounding rude, or, you know, without being insulted to intelligence, but at the same time, people got to understand it. You know, it is a completely different life. So, and then I'm having, you know, and it's really fun as well, because it's got me and my. I mean, I'm still quite close to. I mean, I left the Royal Navy 12 years ago. Most of us from our original squad have left, but it's been good getting in touch, going, oh guys, remember this story? And I can't quite remember what happened there. Oh yeah, and do you remember this time when so and so happened? So it's been really good in that regard. I have written the majority of the book in note form, but I'm obviously typing, and I'm typing it out on my laptop now from note form and just going from there. Now, I think you've got to find a silver lining in every cloud. Don't matter how dark it is. So with this Corona business going on, perfect time, because my electrical business has been put on hold, obviously, because we're in isolation. So yeah, I've just been having fun writing the book, and looking after the bees, which is another business I started last year.
I'm actually like, if you just include like your bee working inside of your book, I'm immediately going to buy it, just because that is one thing. I'm like, I remember so many times people are like, I'm allergic to bees. I gotta get a shot. Got to get one of those shots, so I don't, my throat doesn't close up or something. I'm just like, I've never felt a bee sting before. I've been stung multiple times, but they just don't hurt me for some reason. So I'm just not really afraid of them.
These things don't really hurt. That it's more the shock, and honeybees sound scary because they've got four pairs of wings. So they, when they're
It's
close to your ear,
it's it's
it's
because they don't look like regular animals that we associate with love and kindness. When you see a horse, when you see a koala bear, you're like, they're so cute. Have you ever seen a koala bear soaking wet? That thing looks like Satan himself. Like, I try and tell people the easiest way to really understand a bee is just respect it like you would respect a person. I mean, just think they're doing their thing. They got their own mind. It's just like ants. They're all working, trying to do whatever they have to do to provide for the hive. But when you try and mess up their flow is when they get antsy. The
this
interesting thing
this
about bees, I would say, is I had this class in school. It was a speech class, and a girl came in and she wrote her whole memoir about bees, trying to convince people to understand bees a little bit better. And she was talking about how bees, like, if you can, I guess I forgot what it was, if you put them in a jar, you can knock them out temporarily or something, or use some type of light. And what happens is when they get knocked out, you can put a piece of floss string around their like body, and you can have a pet. You can have
yeah,
a pet
a fly
bee.
on a pet bee on a string. Yeah,
That was nuts
yeah.
to me. But what I heard the best was Joe Rogan. He has his own podcast. I was listening to an episode, and he talked about working for Fear Factor, and they would cover the contestants in bees.
In
And
bees, yeah, yeah.
he talked about one time they were setting up for a shoot to do the bee part, and another group of bees that were dominant to that area, and they were
Dude,
introducing new bees.
that was on the James Hetfield Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and he
Dude,
was
I listened to that last week.
and he was talking about that, and he was talking about how like they had to sit there and let the bees work it out and understand
It's
each
like
other's territory.
bee gang warfare, wasn't it? Yeah.
East Coast, West Coast, bro. Like that. When I heard that, I was like, maybe bees are more intelligent than we thought. And I mean, forever when I was a kid, I was always like, bees are stupid. They don't provide anything. And then I remember watching the Bee Movie with Jerry Seinfeld when it first
Yeah,
came out.
yeah, yeah.
We watched that in class. I was like, wait a minute. So bees aren't around, all the flowers die? And they're like, yeah, that's why bees are essential. I'm like, there's a benefit to these strange little creatures.
Well, just let me pause you there because I've got to warn you before you start. If you're going down the honeybee path, it's like it's a rabbit hole, and you just get sucked in, and out. There is no way out. But yeah, going through what you said there, we can learn so much. Nature knows best, and that's my company motto with honey. Because I don't use any pesticide. I'm trying not to, but I haven't done so far. So I haven't used any pesticides or acids or anything like that in my hives. So I'm 100% organic because nature knows best. I'm still learning the ropes at the moment. I'm what you call a second year beekeeper, but I'm hitting a lot of issues at the moment. But yeah, bees know best. We can learn so much from them because their ideology is for the greater good. And
It's really about serving the queen. That's all it really is. It's kind of like they
it,
produce this thing. They try and keep things alive. They spread, pollinate, and do all these things. But the way most companies do, like if you see a honey thing, like I'm guessing you're making honey from these bees, and you're also trying to find
yes.
other ways, right? What else are you doing besides honey?
So what I will be doing is saving the wax. So we'll be making wax candles. And what we'll also be doing is incorporating the honey into beauty products, soaps, lip balms, things like that.
More beneficial. That's a dominant market too, especially in the beauty society that we have today. I mean, most people are like, if it has coconut oil or if it has bee oil, I want to buy it because it's going to make my skin silky smooth. It's like that's a perfect market to go down too. But like if you look at a bunch of factories and these main corporations that harvest bees or work with bees and get honey and try and turn them into these, they say organic products or more beneficial small brand companies, they're not really doing the bees right. They're kind of knocking them out with some type of gas. They're doing a lot of kind of cruelty things that PETA does get upset about, which is why like it's a big giant thing, at least as a even a book writer and also kind of trying to be more beneficial and, nature knows best type lifestyle. You have to understand the safety and all this stuff. And plus you have to understand these bees a lot
Well,
more than everybody else.
here's a weird thing, right? So it's common knowledge, I think you would agree, and I think you mentioned it before, that, like, say, if the honeybee dies or goes extinct, they pollinate our crops, 80% of our crops. If the bees die, we die. That's quite common knowledge, I think. So everyone thinks the honeybee's endangered, but if you look at the numbers, well, I went to a it's kind of like a podcast, but on stage. It's called Birmingham Skeptics in Birmingham City Centre at a pub called Victoria. And I went there a couple of months ago about the honeybees being endangered, and it kind of debunked that myth. It kind of debunked that what I thought was the fact that the honeybees are endangered. Because if you look at the numbers, there's that pollination. I mean, in California alone, I think I read the pollination service where a farmer needs, say, the almond industry. So pollination, sorry, is $1.2 billion industry. Almonds, like say now, everyone's going vegan or using less dairy produce, so everyone's drinking almond milk now. But you need honeybees to pollinate the almond trees. So you're getting hundreds. Farmers are paying beekeepers hundreds of dollars to set hives up in their orchards to pollinate. It's a huge. So when you think about it, the honeybee isn't endangered because commercially the numbers are doing nothing but going up. But the flip side to that coin is, I think the way with so when I went to that that discussion, I was like, wow, that's quite a bold statement to say. Oh, bees aren't endangered. All this save the honeybee business, they're thriving. Yeah, commercially they are, but are they so in their natural habitat?
And I'm guessing bees can't produce really a lot of honey if they're in an uncomfortable environment too. I feel like the stress conditions would make it a lot more difficult for them to be able to thrive like they normally would.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am nowhere near an expert. I'm still learning, but I do a lot of research. I try and when I'm down that rabbit hole, I just try and suck in as much information. You try and do your fact checking, do your source check, to find out the information that you're getting is correct.
Well, we all function as people, and even animals function with a type of flow. We react to our environments, we react to many things. And I didn't truly understand what that meant until like recently, and I'll admit to where my education for this is coming from. Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr. is on Netflix. And I was watching, there's a small scene in there that's meant to be a joke. And he's playing a thing on his little guitar, his little whatever flute, lute, whatever type thing. And he's plucking these chords over and over and over again. And the moths are spinning one direction. He goes, and if you play them in this type of going from a dramatic scale down, they fly counterclockwise. And he starts doing it, and they all immediately stop and start going the other way around. And it was a huge thing. And then Watson opens up the jar like an asshole and lets them all fly out. But when you're watching that, it shows that we all move in this ebb and flow. As people, we do the same thing. I think that we're all on our own tune, obviously, but like it's the same thing with bees. Like I wonder if you were able to play music at one point, like actual physical music, would they react a little bit differently in the way they pollinate or even make honey?
Well, I play guitar as well, so I was actually thinking of that. I think should I play guitar, acoustic guitar next to the hive, see if it makes a difference. But because
you start playing some AC/DC Back in Black, and they just start freaking popping out honey left and right.
It makes plants grow better, doesn't it? So right. Yeah, it's got the beauty of honeybees, and say nature knows best. The reason bees do so well is because they act as one. There's all the same blood. They're the same. You can get different races of bees and different types of bees, but as the colony goes, because there's only the queen lays eggs. There's no one else but the queen. So they're all her babies. You're all brothers and sisters, all of you.
Have you ever encountered the queen before?
Oh yeah.
Does it? It's
Yeah.
scary, isn't it?
No, no, no. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
I saw it when I was a kid. It scared the shit out of me. I was probably like, I don't know, like maybe like 11 or like 10 years old. And my mom's like, go take the dog out for a walk. I walk out on the front lawn. Someone had knocked down a beehive and it broke open. And there's this giant fat bee, like the size of
Yeah.
this soda can, like the size of this can, just laying on the ground walking. And you can see its whole, like its ass just going like back and forth. And I'm like, what the
She's
hell is
got a fat
that?
ass.
Yeah, yeah, but it was a queen bee. I was like, dude, you got to kill that thing. Like, holy crap, that is the scariest thing in the world. But the amount of protection that goes into that thing, like the bees don't know what to do. The hive will eventually die if the queen is lost for too long, if they can't get another queen.
Well, this is the amazing thing. So, just to tell you a little bit where I'm at now. So, I bought since my birthday on April the 30th. So, last year my business was going through a quiet period. End of the last financial quarter of the year, business tends to go quiet. So I was like, I needed something to do. I'm already doing my writing. I was like, so I was actually looking at new golf clubs. But then as I was searching around on YouTube, and then I come across a couple of honeybee videos, and then the more I looked into it, I thought, this would be a cool hobby actually. And then the more I looked into it, I just thought, I can make off this, but whilst doing something nice at the same time. Now, where I live in Birmingham, there's a huge piece of green belt or countryside called the Lickey Hills, and that's where sort of my entrepreneur brain came in and said, well, I mean, I aside from my time in the forces, I've lived. Well, I'm from here. I've lived all my life. There's nothing around here branded Lickey Hills, surprisingly, which is crazy because there's horse, sheep, cows up here, but there's no Lickey Hills beef, no Lickey Hills jam. There's nothing. So I thought immediately the branding alone sells itself. Yeah.
It's a perfect market.
So
You don't have a lot of preservative things. See, the weird part about America here is we have a lot of these, organic, a lot of these small pop shops, but also most of people buy corporate when it comes to honeys, jams, all these types of things. I mean, what do you want on a biscuit? You want some jam on there. You want a spread on there. You want something tasty on there. Me, I'm not a big fan of honey unless it's in my Honey Smacks, which is a popular cereal here in America. But I mean, I've seen so many people put a little bit of honey in their coffee, especially, I mean, it's an open market here when it comes to soaps and types of shampoos. People always want their thing infused with honey. So that means you can jack up the price a little bit more. But I mean, what are the biggest mistakes you've come across doing this so far? Because you're saying I wanted a hobby and you start going to the beekeeping side. Normal
yes,
people would just buy an Xbox or maybe, I don't know, get an upgrade on their Netflix package or something. Like I want free cable.
I deliberately don't do that. I don't play. I have done, but I just find it sucks me in, and I feel like I'm not improving myself. Don't get me wrong, I like GTA as much as the next man, but a bit of Red Dead Redemption 2.
I need to be doing something, dude. I tell you, as soon as I start playing video games for like 8 hours or something, I'm like, my life is wasted.
Yeah, where's my life gone? And then I'm like, oh, and I think it's too easy a way to get you in a rut. So I've always got a guitar in my hand. I'm always on YouTube researching, or learning how to improve one of my businesses or ideas for the book. I'm researching that. So I'm always trying to do something rather than just sitting on my ass, But the question you said about what troubles talking to beekeeping. So when I first started, I literally just watched a lot of YouTube videos. There are beekeeping courses, which it's probably cost you about $150. And I thought, it's a box, isn't it? It's not rocket science. So I didn't really want to pay $150 to be told when I can research it myself. Now, the thing with here's how somebody put it to me. You can ask 10 gardeners what's the best way to grow roses. You'll get 10 answers and none of them are wrong. Beekeeping's the same way. What's the best way to keep bees? You won't get around. You know, what works for one hive might not work in another, another location.
Yeah.
I'm having fun sucking it in the scene, if you know what I mean. It's
Yeah, well, each bee is probably different, just like the person who beekeeps them is. You have your own style that you're going to develop. I mean, I'm already automatically thinking like you have a beehive. Usually, I think of those giant square case things, like you pull it out. It's like a giant sheet with honeycombs on it, and the bees all over there. Somebody usually puts like a smoke thing in there and smokes them out. But for you, I'm thinking if you're going to design your own thing instead of doing just an average beehive sitting on a tree or something, I mean, you could be using like electrical stuff with that. You could be using that to make a self-sustaining heater, something to help them with, keeping them out of the harsh environments and stuff.
well, I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't know how to say this without sounding like a douche, but it's just the way my brain thinks. I'm spotting a lot of gaps. I'm spotting a lot of gaps in education and conservation in regards to honeybees and just in the wildlife in general. I think, especially with kids and the youth. You know, I think they're the ones that need educating more than anything because they're our future, so to speak. So what I want to eventually do is set up live cams on the hive entrance. So eventually, when the company grows and you buy my honey off sort of an e-commerce website, you can actually select what hive you want the honey from, and you can watch it, so to speak, being made.
Are you trying
You don't get
to
much. You don't get much more 100% organic than that. You're watching bees making your honey from the hive you selected.
I think that's
Obviously,
actually
that's
pretty important too, because if you look at the younger generations, they're all talking about doing sustainability, help saving the earth, help doing all these different things like cutting out, fossil fuels, trying to do the best that they can to save the environment. But what the bad part is they're not understanding a better way from cutting off the bad. So you're cutting off the bad, that'll last maybe a week or two, but then they're like, what are we doing? We don't have this, we don't have that, we don't have this. It's
yeah.
like, because you didn't find an alternative source. You just shut the power off and it was like, maybe the lights will come back on in a different way. No, you got to find a sustainable way to work around that so it'll keep the progress going.
See, it's funny you should say that. My friend Simeon, he's got a son called River, and he's got two stepdaughters. Now they were raised differently because they've only been together a couple of years. But we had a power cut recently, and River, his son, grew up playing board games and Legos and actual physical stuff, comic books and things like that. Whereas his two stepdaughters, they're glued to iPads and phones, and so when there was a power cut, they were like, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world!" Whereas River just got his toys out, went to a toy box, and went, "Nah, don't need lights for this." You know what I mean?
Well, there's
It's
two
kind
types
of
of people, right? There's the people that when the lights get shut off, they just sit there and wait for them to come back on. Then there's the second type that when the lights get shut off, they look for another thing. They try and find a way to get them back
yeah.
on. They try and do a way of, at least not sitting in the dark with their thumb up their ass. And sadly, a lot of people nowadays, that's the norm is, sitting around and waiting for somebody else to fix it. And that can't be how you got to be, especially in life. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, like it's very, very popular nowadays. It does, where you say you're a poor entrepreneur, that's most entrepreneurs just because of how hard it is to get above and into an open market when we got all these giant corporations. But I mean, as we're seeing more and more and more, a lot of these main corporations are lying. A lot of these main corporations are providing false things, kind of like, what they call a little white lie or something. And they're becoming very, very discreditable to the point where people are like, I want to buy local stuff. I want to support local people, and I think that's an amazing thing.
I'm really glad, Rob, you brought up that point because it's something I've been hoping for really with all this Corona business, and I'm trying to stay away from Facebook and things like that because I'm just not interested anymore. It's all contradictory, fake news anyway. No one cares. Just concentrate on your patch of grass, But but coming to your point with that, I'm hoping that once we do come out of isolation and where we've realised we've had to come together as communities and help one another, is instead of queuing for 2 hours at the supermarket, go to your local shop. Go, you know what I mean? Help out. I'd rather, if you use local, you're helping a family out. You're helping swimming lessons, aren't you? You're not just putting fuel into the company boss's Ferrari. Now, don't get me wrong, he's worked hard to get that Ferrari, but just, do you know what I'm saying? You're not, I'm hoping after the end of it, when we're all allowed out again, you know, we won't just go back to the, you know, supermarket corporate stuff, and we do start using local and
I think we'll
supporting our small business more.
probably for like a week or so, we'll be supporting local businesses a lot more. Maybe some people a little bit longer, but it's not going to last just when it comes to convenience and stuff. We're at this point now where we've been isolated for a while to where people are like, I really regret not being able to get a haircut. I regret all these things I took, took for granted. But it's like, once this is over and 2 weeks has passed, everybody's going to go right back to normal. It's the same thing you get when you're in a near-death experience and you move on from it. But I understand it. But the thing is, this is a prime time for you in this market right now to be able to get your Instagram page out there, get your company started going. I mean, most people are sitting at home. The best time right now for any business or any podcast, any whatever you want to say, is to market on the internet right now because everybody's sitting around their phone 24/7.
Exactly. And that's what I like about the entrepreneurial side of things. Anyway, as you're learning, say, a business, you come across that many problems, and I anticipate getting over them, so to speak. You know, we have a saying like, "A smooth sea never made a good sailor." You know.
Yeah.
So, like for example, I'm having trouble with my prototype hive at the moment, beehive. We installed. There's lots of different ways. There's a couple of different ways to start a hive. We haven't got long enough for me to tell you, so I'll just because I'll talk for hours. So basically, what I did, I bought what's called a nuke, NUC, nuke, and basically that's got 5 frames in it, full of bee eggs, pollen, honey, and a queen, a mated queen. And what you do, you just transfer them 5 frames from a nuke box, which is like a mini transportable beehive, into my main beehive, which I've called my prototype, which I've called Hive Cassie. And you essentially just put them 5 frames, transfer them across into your hive, shut it up, and leave them alone for 10 days. Then after 10 days, you go back, you should start seeing the bees building up honeycomb on the frames. And there you go. And that's what we did. There's some preparation you got to do for the winter. Now here's the thing as well. This is where my research is lacking, because there's a severe gap in British beekeeping videos research. I've got a theory as to why that is, but I'm also excited because I plan to fill that gap. But where my problem with that is, a lot of it is Canadian and American, whereas your weather system is completely different to Britain. I mean, Britain's got its own unique weather pattern anyway, but you know, you have a lot more harsh winters and harsh summers over there. So you've got to do a lot more prep work with your beehives, whereas I don't have to do that, but I don't really get a good idea on what to do in my beehive as a beginner with the weather we're having at the moment. So I did what I thought was right. Unfortunately, I don't think my queen quite lasted through the winter. So I've tried my best, but I can't find her. So what I did, I made a decision last week, was to speak to a buddy of mine who's also got bees. And what I was going to do was take a couple of frames of what we call brood, which is bee eggs, bee larvae, honey, pollen, put it in my hive Cassie, and let nature take its course. By that I mean, what the bees will do is realise they're queenless. So what they'll do, they'll go, we need a queen, right? Turn one of the eggs into a queen. Now, a queen bee is fed on exclusively on what is called royal jelly, which is a mixture of a high concentrated version of nectar and pollen and honey.
Helps them grow big.
Yeah, but that's all she eats. So every bee egg gets three days worth of royal jelly. After 3 days, it stops, and then they turn into a male bee, or they'll turn into a worker bee, which is also a female.
See, explaining that though makes me think of at least queen bees in a different light. I'm looking at them now like, are they just sex slaves? Like, you have to think about it like it's just one thing that kind of has its only job is to reproduce. It seems like all they do is feed it so it can breed. It's like, is that really loyalty to the queen, or is that more of like, we need you type style?
I think it's more control. It's controlling. I mean, a beehive in its peak will have 50,000, 80,000 bees. That's a lot to control. So I think by having one person in charge saying what's what, I mean, I know it's a totalitarian state, like, but it works, and they've been doing it for millions and millions of years, and it works.
What did you name your beehive?
I named my hive Cassie.
You named it Cassie.
Yeah, my dog's called Cassie.
Do you have any bees that you've named? Because that'd be the first thing. Look, I bought a fish tank once.
I did.
I know. I bought a fish tank once, and I named every fucking fish in that thing. I was calling them all stupid names like you would get off the back of the cereal box.
So, so I named the queen, the first queen. I called her Madge after Her Majesty. So, come on, Madge, where are you? No, she was marked because I bought her from a new box. She was marked, making it easier to spot her. So she had a red dot on her head from the place that I bought her. There's 5 colours a bee can be to indicate what year she was born. So this year is 2020. It ends in a 0, so it's blue to represent the end of the year. Is it because queen bee can live 3 to 5 years. So there's 5 different colours will show how old the queen is.
How many is that? How many is that in bee years?
Oh God, I don't know.
You got to think like if there's dog years, so every
dog
year,
times 7, yeah.
Yeah, so a bee's got to be like probably like maybe 15 years or something. If they're living 3 to 5, they probably live to like the ripe old age of like 70. And plus, you're tossing out so many babies at once. That's a good for a 70-year-old man.
Exactly.
She got them fertile hips.
So, unfortunately, I checked the hive about a week later, and they hadn't turned any of the eggs into a queen. So I was like, "Oh, what do I do now? Do I try again?" But the thing is, patience is not one of my virtues, unfortunately. So I'm like, "Come on, I want to start making. I want to start seeing eggs, and that way I know honey's going to be made." And so I made the decision to travel about 20 miles down the road to a bee farm where they sell queens for about $75. So all that happens is you'll get a mated queen in a little plastic cage. There are videos of it on my Instagram, and it's a little plastic cage with a hole in the end. And what you do, you put a piece of candy or a sugar cube or something like that in the hole, and you put the cage in the beehive, and it will take the bees about 2 days to eat through that candy. And what that does is give the hive a chance to accept the queen, get used to her pheromones, start building up honeycomb, in preparation so she can leave the cage and start laying straight away.
So wait, bees eat candy?
Yes.
What type of candy besides like a sugar cube? Does it have to be super sweet? Like if I toss a box of Thin Mints down, are they going to tear them up, or is it a Three Musketeers type beehive?
Well, I don't know I think that's American candy, so I don't know. Basically, it's just sugar. Anything sweet, they'll definitely investigate it.
That's how you name your beehive, is figure out what candy they eat. You toss down like a Snickers bar, you toss down like some type of Twix or a Rolo bar, and next thing you know, they just walk over to it like, I ain't about that, Baby Ruth.
Do you know what's amazing though about bees is how perfect they clean. So obviously, when I harvested honey last year, my research showed me just leave, obviously, because I've got a big, it's called an extractor, which is just a big centrifuge. You take the wax cappings off the frame, which just leaves the honey in the honeycomb, and then you put it in the frame, and the centrifugal force spins it out, collects at the bottom, run it through a filter, put it in the jar. There you go, Licky Hills honey. So obviously, you can imagine, cleaning a big stainless steel extractor plus all the frames. It'd be a right pain in the arse. But my research said just leave it next to the beehives. So what they do, they clean it. I mean, they don't miss a drop of honey, and they return it back to the hive. And what they'll then do is use that to help them store for the winter period.
What have you seen has been the most beneficial thing since you've started raising bees, or at least harvesting their honey too? I mean, first of all, how difficult is it to get their honey out? Because I feel like they'd be protecting that more than anything.
No, so and this one not a lot of people don't understand about beekeeping. One of my friends actually thought, cussed me out really, because oh, that's cruel, that is. I was like, well, dude, I don't know what you think
You like
beekeeping.
breakfast? You like honey on your breakfast? Shut the fuck up. We're doing honey.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So extracting honey is easy, but you don't take all of it. That's the deal you got with the bees. You don't take all of it. You need to leave them enough to get them through the winter. So they stop collecting and making honey around the end of August time. So what the queen lives in the bottom box, which is called the brood box. And then what I do is have a plastic, or it comes in metal, but it's like a frame that goes on top of that box, and it's got tiny holes in, enough to let worker bees through, but the queen's too fat to go through the holes, so she can't go through. It's called a queen excluder. So then what you do, you put it's called a super. You put that on top of your brood box with the queen excluder on, so the queen can't lay eggs in the super. So all the bees do is use that to store honey, and that's what I take.
And how do you know? How do you know if it's enough though? Like, how do you know that this is the right amount to where they're not going to kill me in my sleep type thing?
Well, this is where I'm learning. See, I don't know all the answers yet, because I'm not. One of the reasons my queen may not have lived through the winter is that I didn't leave them enough honey. When I checked in the late, when I checked the hive about beginning of April, there was still honey in there, but whether it was enough, I'm not sure. But I didn't feed my bees any sugar syrup or anything like that, because I wanted to maintain my organic status, so to speak. Because when you buy commercial honey, a lot of it is just blended glucose syrup that's been ran through a bee a couple of times. You know what I mean? It's nowhere near honey. If you want proper honey, it's like you said earlier, you don't really like honey. If you to people who say that to me, I always say, make sure you buy local honey, because the difference is out of this world. If you check my Instagram video, actually, you'll from last year, you'll see a video of me actually tasting honey straight out the honeycomb for the first time. I feel I got like 600 views on that. It was because just my action is like, wow, that's amazing. Because I never really liked honey. I haven't got a sweet tooth, but I think that's probably why I'm good for this. Good for you. You don't get high on your own supply, do you?
That's a good motto, especially for an organic company too. Now, even with all this kind of being brought around, though, like, do you see as this is something you want to venture off into, like eventually leaving the electrician company and starting maybe your own preserve?
This is well, I don't really believe in plans. I've got a 3-year plan. I've got a 5-year plan. I think if you aim that way, you're doing okay. But to actually have a plan, so to speak, I find it puts me off. May work for others, but it puts me off. But what I did actually say to myself when I started the honey, when I started Liquid Hills Honey was, what do I want to be doing in 5 years' time? Do I want to be climbing under office desks, chasing computer leads and testing them? I'll be like early 40s then. Do I really want to be doing that, or do I want to be sat in my garden with a G&T looking after my bees?
Sounds a little bit easier on the second one.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the plan.
Well, here's like a
So
thing when you're marketing your company too, like I think the easiest thing for you to do, you don't have to do a whole lot to the ingredient of the honey. Basically, honey can sell itself. Everyone uses honey on cooking purposes. You can easily market so many of these at like a shop, such as like a bakery store. People want to use honey for like sweet treats or desserts or something. But it's selling your product. It's label. It's the logo of your company. It's all these things because appearances are everything in today's society. Nobody's going to click on an ad in Instagram unless it looks cool or looks interesting to them. So you need to make your label really nice. You need to make it obtainable. The weird thing is where honey gets bought so much, and the reason why there's a bear that is on the logo, it's not because hair or bears love honey. It's because they've been associated with that, and they look adorable, and people want to pick up something like a cute little teddy bear on a thing of a honey.
so that annoys me. Teddy bear honey, it just annoys me.
Like it doesn't make
Why is it a bear?
sense.
But no, it doesn't.
I have
It
never
doesn't.
seen in my 20-something years, even on YouTube, of any bear with their head in a honey hive as much as I've seen Winnie the Pooh in that damn thing.
Well, that's the that's the gift and curse of marketing, isn't it? That's what everyone thinks about. Winnie the Pooh and his bum hanging out of the big honey pot. But do you know what the interesting thing about that with bees and bears? Bees have evolved to learn how to attack bears. So when bears do attack honey, because it's a great, especially before they hide. Bear in mind, we don't get bears in England, so but bears, as I understand it, they feed as much as they can prior to hibernation, don't they? So if they find a good honey nest, they're gonna get all that goodness in them to go for the big sleep, aren't they?
Dude, I just found the best name for your book, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but you definitely need to call your book The Birds and the Bees. I'm telling
The
you.
birds and the bees, yeah.
That is perfect. And at the ending, you just circle back around with the bee thing. That would be great.
Yeah, man. That's a good idea.
Patent it, copyright it, go, go, go.
Boo, boo, boo. Yeah, so bees have evolved because when a bear attacks their nest or their hive, the bear's got really incredibly thick fur, hasn't it? So bees have kind of evolved themselves to attack the ears and the eyes to stop the bear. So that's I suppose that's why all beekeepers have bee suits as well.
Yeah, do you have your own bee suit?
I do.
I just figured
I,
you're wearing a tank top right now. I was hoping you weren't going out there like, I got this, like going shirtless in the back. I'm like, hang on a second, you're gonna get stung.
do you know this is the this, I'm slowly trying to come away from, like, I don't use gloves anymore. I'm trying not to use gloves.
Don't
Um,
don't give me that thing where you're gonna be like, I'm slowly trying not to use the suit, because then it's gonna
yeah,
turn into like Joe
no,
Exotic, where the guy gets his arm ripped off after being so comfortable with the tigers. I'm like, don't do that, please.
But I think the bees sense it as well. I mean, I'm very, when I first did it, I mean, I mean, dude, it's, I mean, there's, I've got my own YouTube channel, Licky Hills Honey. So by all means, have a look at it after. You can see my first time where I'm transferring the nuke into Hive Cassie. I had to do it quickly because it was a little bit raining. But the crazy thing was, like, imagine I'm knocking on your door now and go, here you go, here's a bee suit, put this nest of bees in that box. You'd be like, dude, what the hell? You know what I mean? But I'm quite naturally confident like that. So, but it is scary. And you're like, I'm in a suit, they can't sting me. I'm in a suit, they can't sting me.
It's all
And
about a
it's weird.
comfortability too. Probably the more
It's weird
comfortable.
not doing that, ducking, and you hear a bee in your ear, and it's weird.
Well, the
But
more
now,
comfortable
yeah,
you get with the bees, they probably are a lot calmer around you. Like if you approached me and asked me to put on a bee suit and mess with some bees, I'm saying, fuck the suit. I'm going to do it, because the easiest thing is to be scared of something is the fear itself. It's so much easier just to do it and not think about it. I mean, do I say I would walk into a pit with tigers? No, but I guarantee you if I was forced to, it's just the best way to just sit there and display no emotion. If you think too much
yeah,
on it, next thing you know, you freak yourself out.
yeah, exactly. And it's the same. It's the same with any creature, really. I think if you pay it the respect, I mean, I don't mean to say a tiger's not going to eat you because you didn't start no shit, but
Just carry a
but
Glock on your
yeah.
waistband, so if they try and mess up, you just start shooting.
um, I saw I saw on a beekeeping video the other day. There was because when you research it, especially you see a lot of Canadian and American beekeepers, you'll get some like 60-year-old guy, he's in shorts, he's in flip flops, and he might have a hat on, he might not, and he's just there. He's got his little fruit crate sat next to the hive, and he's going, "Yeah, we're looking through this today." And I'm like, dude, and you can hear the bees so much in the phone microphone. And I saw this video the other day, and people like, oh, how long did it take you to do the bees without the bee suits? And he was like, he says, your people can or can't do it. So I'm trying to be one of the guys that can.
It takes a specific breed of people, I would say, to be able not to be afraid of bees. I mean, I get it. They scared the crap out of a lot of kids in school, at least in my school, with telling kids, like, you're afraid of bees, people are allergic, your throat will swell up, you can die from an allergic reaction. But a lot of us weren't really allergic to bees. And then, like, they were trying to show people, like, the benefits of, bees and stuff. And I remember after seeing that bee movie, just walking out into my yard and, like, looking and seeing all these little bees flying around and, landing on a rose or something, pollinating a flower and moving on to the next one. I'm like, they're just simple things. They're just trying to live their life, do their routine. They work in a process. It's the same reason I have a great respect for ants. I mean, if a rock falls in front of an ant, they all work around it. They don't try and go through it. They work around it. And it seems like the one thing that humans have always done is try and break through something. It's like, let's not do that. Maybe we need to flow like water and work around it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I kind of have a saying. I live my life through lots of cheesy cliches, but I always say, that's man's problem, isn't it? Greed is what drives us forward, but it's what kills us eventually as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like Arby's. We have the meats. I think that's a good lifestyle to live by for sure.
The what? Sorry.
You ever heard of Arby's?
Is that like a fast food restaurant?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a guy that comes on the thing. He goes, "Arby's, we have the meats." That's how I like to live my motto. Just walk around like, we have the meats. Or you could be like Burger King and just say, "Have it your way." But I feel like that's too much. It's like with the electrical outlets with kids. It's like you're giving them too much. You need to be shocked sometimes. Those were formative moments as a child. You need to know that if you stuck a fork into a toaster, things were going to go wrong. I've done that. I learned the toaster blew up, and I guess I do stay away from the toaster now.
So here's a question for you in America, because this is an idea I had for the honey. When you talked about marketing earlier and about the honey branding itself, I did have an idea for that. Do you have? I suppose it's worldwide. Do you know what a Michelin star is for a restaurant?
A mission statement? I mean, like a mission statement?
A Michelin star.
A mission star. I don't think I know what that is.
Okay, so like the finest restaurants in the world, the best French, chefs, they'll have a restaurant with 1, 2, or 3 Michelin stars. The upper class, posh food, posh nosh. Well, the idea was no one's branding this in Birmingham. Well, I'm the first to do it. So there's 5 Michelin starred restaurants in Birmingham, which is the city I live. So my idea was to contact these Michelin star restaurants, because obviously all Michelin star restaurants use local produce and the finest produce, don't they? So we'd like to think they should. So my idea was to contact the Michelin star, all 5 Michelin star restaurants, and say, I'm the only person in Birmingham selling branded honey, 100% organic, which you can use in your restaurant, and kind of jump on the coattails of that. Look, my honey's in this Michelin star restaurant. Boom, boom, boom. That's the idea.
That might be a good idea for UK, but if you're going to try and market into America, I could hook you up with some people that I've met through podcasting that open up their own small artisanal shops that sell like jams and jellies and all these other types of things that they support local. I mean, that would be the best way to get it in here, at least through America, that I know of. But I mean, the major benefit of being a small artisanal like preserves maker like yourself is trying to sell it towards people that open up their own shops where it's locally stuff, like local, like, CBD, local soaps, oils. You know, I built this in my backyard. You got a chicken coop and chickens running around everywhere, like out front of their store. That is the perfect way to do it, because now you're seeing a lot of people be like, I don't want to do the corporate thing anymore. I want to branch off, and I want to go and try and find something hidden, trying to find something exclusive, try and go to a small pop or mom and pop restaurant or business place and be able to buy something new. That started happening with kids that were in their late 20s, early 30s, that were sitting down with another relationship, like either getting involved with a girlfriend or boyfriend. They would take these trips places, and they would see these small rundown shops, be like, this is a cool adventure for us to do. And they would walk in there and get to know the people and get to do these types of things. Now it's becoming the norm with everybody. You're seeing kids like, fuck the main corporations. Let's go to these small shops. And that's where you need to be selling your stuff. Have it right in their face saying the birds and the bees on the front of the cover.
Exactly. And I think, like, I've got a friend who grows chilies. So, you know, he gives me a jar of chilies and I give him a jar of honey. There's no cash involved. And I
like
think
a
that
drug deal
cool.
with preservatives.
Yeah. So wouldn't that be cool if a whole community did that? You know, you go to one guy for your spuds, go to another guy for your tomatoes, you know.
You got to trade the chicken for the goat, then the goat for the chicken egg, and then, I got you.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be a world of working together, which I don't know if even a pandemic can bring us there. So we have to try our hardest to try and move towards that direction.
So what part of America do you live?
East Coast. I'm right on where Maryland, and it's right next to Delaware. So we're close to New York, maybe a couple hours away.
Because New York's been hit pretty hard from what I hear anyway.
Everywhere's been about the same. It's about lockdown at the moment right now. It's just everybody staying inside their house. And I'm like, look, you just got to let people go out and experience their own thing. I mean, if you can sit there and be around bees all the time, then I'm pretty sure you can be around people with coronavirus. Because that, honestly, the bee thing scares me more than the corona thing does.
It's not the virus that scares me. It's the people. That's you know, that's.
I just don't like walking into a store and it feeling like a movie. That's what scares the hell out of me. I'm walking in.
I kind of like it.
You're wearing. No, it's like I Am Legend with Will Smith. It makes me think that if they get like a cure or something, then the cure is going to get everybody infected and turn them into zombies. So I'm going to wait a couple months.
Yeah.
But then that goes into a whole other conspiracy theory where we're like, can we use bees to spread the vaccine? Can we just inject their tails with this thing so they just start freaking injecting people with the cure?
Do you know what? Have you seen Black Mirror?
No, and every time I go into one of these rants, someone mentions Black Mirror, and I need to watch it. I'm like,
you need to get on that train.
Is my mind just like a co-producer for Black Mirror? I feel like everything I've said, somebody's always been like, "That's on Black Mirror." I'm like, what?
Well, the reason I brought it up was because there's each episode is different, so it's not like you know, you don't really start season one, go all, you can watch it in any order really. But there's one of the episodes is about it's about bees and using bees as a bioweapon. It's sick. Do you know what?
Stick them into
watching Black Mirror makes you put your phone down, makes you go into your garden and you go, you know what? We need to stop. We need to move away from Google. You know what I mean?
Well, hey,
it's scary. It's scary.
It's the world's scary, my friend. Let me tell you something, but you can't be promoting Black Mirror. Why don't you promote your Instagram page, promote your YouTube channel, promote everything? Because I mean, I appreciate you coming out and having this chat for me with the podcast and everything. It was awesome talking to you.
This has been awesome. In fact, this has been my second international call this week because as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to learn how to build up my Instagram page, Licky Hills Honey, and I thought, right, I've got to engage. YouTube, my research told me, I've got to engage with more people. So I just had this, you know, when Instagram tells you there's someone that you're following is starting a live feed. So I clicked on it. I thought, yeah, and it was just, and it was so cool. It was basically a bunch of guys in the Himalayas. They're isolated. They're farmers that work on the mountains.
This sounds like the beginning to a porn.
No, honestly, mate, it was awesome. They were just sat there and they were cooking vegetable curry. And they were just showing it, and I was like, so, and they spoke English as well, which was which was weird because you don't expect people in the Himalayas to speak English. But yeah, we had like a 15-minute chat, just watching them make what's it called? They would make roti, which is like a bread. It looks like a naan bread, pita bread, with vegetable curry in that. It's like, wow, I'm actually talking to someone in the Himalayas. Just see it. And today I'm speaking to you in America.
Yep, Maryland, baby.
It's cool.
Maryland. Good old crab feast. That's what we do here. That's what we do here in Maryland. But I really appreciate you being able to come out and do the podcast, Stephen. Why don't you plug your Instagram page, plug your YouTube channel, so we can make sure I can link it all at the ending for
everybody. So my Instagram's Licky Hills Honey. My YouTube channel is also Licky Hills Honey. Please like and subscribe. I'll answer any questions that I can, and I really appreciate really appreciate the talk, Rob. I'm up for it anytime.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Out of the Blake podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.